Chris, what are you doing home? Angela, my wife of 28 years, exclaimed as she entered through the garage door, accompanied by a tall, younger man. Angela, as always, exuded beauty with her striking 5 feet 9 inches frame and auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. Dressed professionally in a white blouse and black linen skirt, she looked impeccable, with her figure accentuated by every curve. Ignoring her seemingly obvious question, I retorted, "I live here." Angela's irritation flared up, evident in her response, "Of course you live here. What I want to know is why you are home at 3:30 in the afternoon." Reflecting on the beginnings of our relationship, I recalled how I had fallen for Angela from the moment we met. She was the administrative assistant who had escorted me to a series of meetings at her company, and from that moment on, our love story unfolded. Meanwhile, Angela's companion stood silently by her side, his concern palpable despite the unexpected turn of events. Turning the tables, I queried, "I guess I could ask you the same question, Angie. What are you doing home an hour and a half early?" Angela and I had been inseparable since our first date, and I had poured all my efforts into building our life together, both personally and professionally. As I sat facing Angela, observing the changes in her demeanor over the past weeks, I steeled myself to remain calm. Inside, however, I seethed with the knowledge of her deceitful actions. When Angela mentioned they had come home early to talk, I couldn't help but inquire, locking eyes with her, demanding an explanation. Asswipe took the opportunity to introduce himself, extending his hand confidently. "Mr. Harrington. Chris. I'm Michael Browner. I'm the new attorney at Kellerman & Sons, and I've been working closely with Ong for the last couple of months." Ignoring his offered hand, I fought the urge to lash out physically. Instead, I growled, "I know exactly who and what you are." For the first time, I saw signs of concern in my wife, and she cringed when I followed up with, "You threatened to cut the balls off the last person who called you Ong. Why are you putting up with such disrespect, in your own home, from this pile of shit?" I gestured toward Asswipe. Angie looked worried and confused. By habit, she is a very careful planner. I was certain that she and Asswipe had planned for every possible contingency for this talk. In her mind, every detail was meticulously arranged. I was already, in her mind, a compliant cuckold. A quick glance toward Asswipe made me smile. I was fairly certain that his composure was beginning to crack. A confrontation was imminent, and it would be vastly different from anything Angie and her companion could imagine. Taking deep breaths, I attempted to suppress the rage and disgust simmering within me. "Let's get on with this," I thought to myself. "It's time to throw them off stride again." "Why don't I make 3 drinks?" I suggested. "We can talk in the living room." "A glass of wine, please," Angie requested quietly. As I turned to Asswipe, he seemed wary. "Angela tells me that you enjoy bourbon and craft beer," he remarked cautiously. Acknowledging his observation, I replied, "I do," as I made my way to the family room bar. As I left the room, I heard hurried whispering as they made their way to the living room. A few minutes later, I joined them in the living room. They were seated together on the sofa. I handed Angie a glass of her favorite Merlot and Asswipe a tulip glass filled with amber ale. Taking my own bourbon, I settled into the armchair across from them. After raising my glass in a silent toast, I took a small sip. Returning the gesture, Asswipe took a sip of his beer, studying it intently. "This is one of the most complex amber ales I've ever had." "What is it?" he remarked. "Pabst Blue Ribbon," I replied casually. Asswipe's expression shifted with a hint of anger, and Angie appeared puzzled. "But you've said that Pabst Blue Ribbon is worse than Donkey Urine and the crappiest beer ever made," she interjected. She was halfway through her comment when she saw me laughing. "You're such an asshole," she exploded. "We came home to have a calm talk with you, and you've been nothing but rude and condescending." I smiled and questioned, "I'm an asshole, rude, and condescending? I guess we really need to start your talk. I'm sure that I'm about to learn how to have a polite, uplifting, and loving conversation from my ever-faithful wife." Angie cringed and couldn't meet my eyes. Asswipe took over it and began, "Chris, we've come here to discuss." I interrupted and said to him, "You had it right the first time." "Excuse me?" He looked confused, as asswipes often do. "When you first addressed me, you called me Mr. Harrington before presumptuously calling me Chris. I greatly prefer, in fact, I insist, you call me Mr. Harrington." As his face started to turn red, I finished with a shrug and said, "Or sir." Instead of letting asswipe continue, I turned to Angie and heatedly asked, "What do you want to talk about?" When asswipe looked like he was going to respond, I said, "I'm talking to my wife, asshole. Just sit there, drink your complex amber ale, and shut the fuck up." Angie was livid and exploded. "Your behavior this afternoon has been disgusting." I wanted to stop now. I nodded and seemed to think about her request. I asked, "Do you think my behavior is better or worse than your behavior over the last 5 or 6 weeks?" "What are you talking about?" Angie was half confused and half worried. Asswipe seemed to be holding his breath as he waited for my answer. I'll guess he was certain that their carefully crafted plan had gone off the tracks. Looking Angie dead in the eyes, I told her, "I don't know what pisses me off more. That you let him put his worthless little cock up your dried-up old cunt, or that you treat me like an imbecile." The stunned look on Angela's face was priceless. Her eyes narrowed, and in a hushed voice she asked the obvious, "You know? It seems like I have more friends at your office than you do. I received an anonymous email from someone at Kellerman's 2 weeks ago. The email warned that you were having an affair and had 3 attachments that showed you on a picnic lunch at Middlewoods Park. The pictures were complete with hand-holding and kissing. I'm sorry that you had to find out that way." Angela was trying to decide how to continue when I jumped in and asked, "So you want a divorce?" "No." She slid to the edge of the couch, leaned forward, rested her elbows on her knees, and passionately said, "I love you and don't want a divorce. What Michael and I are having is a short-term fling. He's new to Connecticut and hasn't made many friends. Once he's settled, I'm sure he'll find a regular girlfriend. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I signed up for a monogamous relationship with a loving wife. Instead, I found out that the woman I've devoted my life to is a slut and cum dump. A divorce works much better for my future plans." Angela begged, "Chris, just stop. I don't want a divorce, and I don't think you do either. This is a one-time fling and nothing more. I'm attracted to Michael, and I wanted a little extra excitement in my life. It's never happened before, it will be over soon, and will never happen again. I promise." I took a small sip of my bourbon and sat quietly for a few moments before responding, "First, your promises have no meaning. Everyone in this room knows you're a liar." Angela was about to erupt when I talked over her and said, "And second, why would I ever believe this is your first affair? For all I know, it's your 51st. Please. You need to stop and think. We've worked together to build our family, and now that Kelly is married and thinking about starting her own family, we can slow down and plan for a wonderful retirement in a few years. My fling with Michael will be long over and forgotten." I got up and, without asking if anyone wanted another drink, walked to the den and refilled my glass. I was confident that my poor manners were not lost on the 2 idiots in the living room. They were huddled together and whispering when I returned. "May I say a few things, Mr. Harrington?" Asswipe asked. "The floor is yours," was my disgusted reply. He gathered his thoughts before saying, "Angela is right. Our relationship is just a short-term fling. I regret that I let a married woman into an affair. I've never done that before. But we hit it off. As you know, she is a spectacular woman. Your threat of divorce, while understandable in the heat of the moment, will prove unwise over the long term. You've invested decades together. Don't throw it away." Angela was initially worried that the prenuptial agreement her father had you both sign would cause her to lose many of her assets in a divorce if we were caught. I can assure you, as a lawyer, that a nearly 30-year-old agreement can easily be overturned. Laws change. Legal wording becomes outdated. Any competent attorney will have the document laughed out of court. But even more important than that, you need ironclad proof of infidelity. Other than some mild, innocent public flirting that some of our associates may have seen, I'm confident you don't have the evidence necessary to enforce the agreement. I wondered, as he finished his brilliant legal summation, how my wife had become so stupid. Turning to Angela, I wondered, I can't understand why you would take legal advice from a corporate attorney who graduated in the bottom quarter of his class from Texas Southern University Law School. Texas Southern is ranked as one of the top 10 worst law schools in the country, year in and year out. How did you know? Asswipe didn't finish as I answered, one of my many mottos is know thy enemy. I continued, as I turned my attention back to Angela, what's your plan moving forward, Angie? She took a few moments to think things through before she told me, Michael and I are going to spend the weekend together. I'll be staying at his apartment tonight, and in the morning, we are leaving for New York City. We'll stay in the city tomorrow and Saturday night, and I'll be home on Sunday. Even though I knew their exact plans, the sheer audacity of my wife's statement tore my heart from my chest. I hoped she could see the crushing sadness in my eyes as I asked, so not only have you shared your body with this man, you're also going to share our quarterly getaway weekend with him? We've gone to New York City 4 times a year, every year since we've been married. Memories of all the spectacular sights we've seen together, the award-winning Broadway plays, the concerts and sporting events. You've shattered all of those heartwarming memories. I don't know what's happened, Angie, but you've become as big a disappointment as this man. I was obviously indicating asswipe. Angela could tell I was devastated and responded accordingly. I didn't hear a single word she said, as the voices in my head were screaming, end it. Fucking end it now. Looking over at a very concerned asswipe, I asked, is your wife okay with you being with my wife? Christopher. Stop. Michael is a widower. His wife died several years ago. He would never cheat on his wife. Even asswipe had the decency to cringe at my wife's last statement. I smirked and said to Angela, unlike you. I continued immediately and asked, is that true? You're widowed? He quickly looked back and forth between Angie and me and hesitantly said, yes. I reached down and pulled a manila folder from the backpack sitting on the floor next to my chair. I opened the folder, scanned the first page and read, Dr. Cynthia Browner, Emergency Department Surgeon, Ascension St. John's Hospital, Detroit, husband Michael, daughters Katie, 11, and Lacey, 9. Dr. Browner has resigned from her current position effective June 22nd and will be moving to the Hartford, Connecticut area to join her husband immediately after her children get out of school. She will be working in a similar position at St. Francis Hospital and Medical Center in Hartford. If I wasn't so grossly unhappy about my marriage, I would have laughed hysterically at the look on Angela's face. You lied to me? She wanted to know. I couldn't help it. I did laugh. Can you imagine? I bellowed. A cheat and a liar lies to a cheat and a liar. What's this world coming to? Michael reached out and cupped Angela's hand. Just before I could shout, get your hands off my wife, I realized I just didn't care. Angela, I'm sorry. I did lie. I couldn't help it. You are so sexy and beautiful. I wanted you and needed you and I lied so I could have you. He stood while still holding her hand. Let's go back to my place and talk. We'll go to New York tomorrow and have a great weekend. When we get back, we'll still have 3 weeks until my family arrives. At that point, you can be a full-time wife and I'll be a full-time husband and father. Angela considered her options for a few moments before standing. She took Michael's hand and turned toward me. After this weekend, I promise to give up Michael completely. I'll come home on Sunday and I'll be the same loving wife I've always been. Angie and I stared at each other for a while. I wondered if she could hear my already crushed heart continuing to break. I've sat here somewhat politely, while you both had the opportunity to tell me about your fling and how, in the long term, it won't affect my relationship with Angie. I'd like to ask that you both sit down and give me a similar 30 minutes of time to lay out the changes I see happening. They exchanged uncertain glances before reluctantly agreeing to sit down. The least you can do is give me 30 minutes of your time, I urged. Reluctantly, they complied. I've arranged several Zoom meetings for us, I informed them, maneuvering the remote with ease, a skill I'd honed during the pandemic. As the TV screen illuminated, I addressed the faces on the screen. Peter. Lou, can you hear me? We can, Chris, Peter replied. Angie, you know our family attorney Peter. Allow me to introduce his partner and my new divorce attorney, Lou Baird. And gentlemen, meet corporate attorney extraordinaire, Michael Browner. Angie and Asswipe were dumbfounded as I continued, Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Lou wasted no time. Mrs. Harrington, I represent your husband in your upcoming divorce. Papers were filed this afternoon. Kindly retain an attorney by Monday's end for official service. If not, we'll hire a process server. We're filing for divorce citing infidelity, supported by a detailed PI report. As Lou spoke, I tossed a second manila folder onto the table in front of Angie, making them both jump. It's our divorce petition, including the PI report, I informed them. While Asswipe reached for the folder, Angie turned back to the screen. We'll ensure the prenuptial agreement is fully enforced, Lou continued. As per our regular legal reviews, it's been updated to current state guidelines every 2 years, with your signed and notarized approval. We're confident it's enforceable. Last night, the board of directors of Harrington Brokerage voted, I interjected. You're relieved of all corporate responsibilities and ties to the firm. You have 7 days to return your company car, and your credit cards, cell phone, and memberships are all canceled. Joint accounts have been frozen, and per the prenup, assets will be split 80/20 in my client's favor. Under the agreement, Mr. Harrington will keep the house without any encumbrances. We've requested the court to expedite your eviction, arguing that you have another residence, occasionally shared with Mr. Browner, making it easier for you to relocate. Mr. Harrington will gain immediate possession of the property, with you given 30 days to remove your belongings, Lou explained. There won't be any alimony, and child support isn't applicable. There are other minor claims my client has made, which your lawyer can detail for you, Lou concluded. Have I missed anything, Chris? Lou inquired. You've covered all the main points, Lou, thanks, I responded. The TV screen promptly turned black. Angie leapt to her feet, shouting, Wait. She turned to me, demanding, Get them back. I need answers. Chuckling, I replied, That's not how it works, Angie. You'll have to consult your own lawyer for that. You bastard. Angie spat. I'll ruin you. Turning to her accomplice, I quipped, Hey, asswipe. What's the odds your brilliant legal mind calculates for this bitch ruining me in the divorce? His silence made Angela slump back on the couch, defeated. I couldn't help but grin as I waved the TV remote at her, then pointed it at the screen. As the next Zoom meeting began, I addressed Jake. Can you hear me? Hi, Chris. I'm in a conference call, so let's make this quick. Browner. You're fired effective immediately. Your belongings will be in a box in the lobby. If unclaimed within 24 hours, they'll be discarded. No recommendation for you. Angela, Jake's tone softened. I glanced at Angie, seeing her tremble in fear. Your conduct as a senior staff member is unacceptable. However, your nearly 3 decades of service count for something. Your role in Hartford is terminated, but I'm offering you the same position in Albany, New York. You have a week to decide, and 30 days to relocate. The screen went dark, leaving Angie sobbing into her hands and Asswipe slumped in defeat on the couch. I smirked at Asswipe, goading him. His anger simmered, but he remained clueless. When I aimed the remote at the TV and pressed a button, the screen lit up, and I addressed Dr. Browner, leaving both Angie and Asswipe stunned into silence. The blonde woman's face appeared on the screen. Please, call me Cynthia, she said. Of course, Cynthia. Go ahead, I replied. Michael, I've filed for divorce. Expect the papers soon. The kids and I will stay in Michigan. I've managed to keep my job at the hospital, Cynthia stated. Asswipe pleaded, Cynthia, please. We can fix this. It was just a mistake. Cynthia's expression turned to disgust. I've done some digging since Chris reached out to me. This isn't the first job you've lost because of your infidelity. After reviewing the PI report, I asked for more information. As everyone watched attentively, Cynthia continued, Mrs. Harrington, do you know Alice Packer? Joy Likely? Tori Jones? Candy Phillips? Angie remained silent, and Cynthia chuckled. I don't expect an answer. I know they're your associates. Did you know Michael had affairs with each of them? You were just one of many. Tell me where to send your belongings, Michael. You're not welcome in my house, Cynthia concluded before the screen faded to black. Asswipe erupted, I'll kill you, asshole. He rose to his feet, but I brandished my Colt .45, causing him to pale with fear. You have two options, asswipe. Leave or shut up. If you come at me, I'll shoot your left testicle off, I warned. Grudgingly, he sat back down, allowing me to proceed with the final Zoom meeting. Glancing at Angie, I saw her pale face streaked with tears and mascara. I've been seeing a counselor, she confessed. It's ironic. You cheat and lie, yet I'm the one needing therapy, I chuckled bitterly. But do you understand the saying love is blind? Dr. Waters helped me realize how much I overlooked because of love. You'll never find someone who loved you like I did. Angie sobbed uncontrollably as I continued, I'll keep seeing Dr. Waters. It's crucial to have someone to confide in, especially after such betrayal. I'll recover from the hurt and humiliation, just as I'll move on from you. I discussed my plan for today with Dr. Waters. She's not a fan of revenge, but she approved of the first 3 Zoom meetings. However, she advised against the next one, fearing it might set back my personal recovery. After considering her advice, I realized she's probably right. The next meeting will do more harm than good. But I don't care. This meeting will hurt me, but it will cripple you. As I held up the remote for the 4th time, Angie recoiled on the couch in panic. I pointed it at the TV and pressed the button. All eyes were fixed on the screen, and Angie groaned, Oh no. Oh no. Please God, oh no. I love you, Daddy, said my daughter Kelly. I love you too, sweetheart. Why? Angie shrieked. How could you possibly be this awful to me? I've heard it all, Mom. Every word you and your boyfriend said. I've heard what you've done and plan to do. You disgust me. Sweetheart. Please. This is a very complicated situation. You're too young to understand. Angela was taken aback when Kelly responded, Fuck you, Mom. I'm 26, happily married. Your situation isn't complicated. It's grotesque and pitiful. I don't know what's changed, but you are selfish and self-absorbed. Angela begged, Kelly. Baby. I've been so lonely since you moved away. It was like I was living in a fog. I missed you so much. Kelly looked perplexed. So what you're saying, Mom, is that it's my fault you've become a liar, cheat, and are getting divorced? No. That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. It doesn't matter, Mom. I think we all need a break from you. Kelly. Angela shouted. I'll come to Boston this weekend and we can talk. I'm so sorry this has happened. I need to be with my baby girl. That's not going to work, Mom, for 2 reasons. First, you'll be in New York with your worthless boyfriend. I'm not going to New York, Angela insisted. And second, Scott and I have planned a small private celebration for our closest family and friends. We've rented a venue closer to Cape Cod. Baby? Oh, baby. What are you celebrating? Since you aren't invited, I'll tell you. I'm 3 months pregnant and will be having a baby girl in February. Kelly Ann, I'm your mother and I insist that you invite me. That's not going to happen, Mom. I want my special party to be filled with love and happiness and not the lying, cheating, and disrespect that is consuming so much of your current life. Goodbye, Mom. For the 4th time, the screen went blank. As Angela sat and cried, I got to my feet and tucked my pistol into the back of my pants. I'm going out for dinner and will be back in 2 hours. Looking at Angela, I said, please pack clothes and other essentials. You won't be allowed back into the house until the court responds to my divorce petition. I'm told that will take a week. Looking at Asswipe, I said, "You've seen what I am capable of doing. I'm giving you 3 days to move out of the state. If you are still here on Monday, I'll have you crippled in a much more literal sense." After pulling open the front door, I looked back at the utterly defeated cheaters and said, "Enjoy your weekend in New York. It's supposed to be beautiful both days." Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.